Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Identity Insights by Indicio. I'm your host, Tim Spring, and today I'm joined by Indicio VP of Business Operations, Scott Harris, and we're here to discuss UI UX in verifiable credentials. Thank you for joining me today, Scott. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me. I am the VP of Business Operations at Indicio. I wear a lot of hats, and one of those hats entails talking to our customers about their user experience and what they intend to do with our product so that I can facilitate the right infrastructure on our end to support it. But as a part of those conversations, we spent a lot of time talking about what their end users are going to experience, whether they're internal or external third-party users, and how we put the technology in the hands of the people that are going to derive the value from that product. So UI UX is a big part of what I do here.
All right, very cool. Well, no, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. So I understand, right, some of our team was recently at EIC, the European Identity and Cloud Conference, and they heard some feedback around UI, UX, and, kind of the verifiable credential world. Would you mind be able to summarize some of that for us?
Well, I can't summarize anything specifically because I didn't go to the event, but I can summarize the summaries, which essentially boiled down to a lot of concern and chatter in the community about seeing things in action and being very impressed by the technology and less impressed by the way that technology appeared to work for the end users again. So that's sort of a chronic thing that we've been hearing in the industry for quite a long time. It's been a focus of our company since our founding 3 years ago. And UI, UX can be a significant blocker to adoption. And I think that was part of what our team was hearing over there was how do we make the user experience, the user workflow, the interactions far more friendly to drive adoption rather than being the other way around, rather than blocking adoption. And so I think it's a trap a lot of us can fall into when we're really jazzed up and inspired by some new technology and we see all the great things it can do, and we want to put it to work right away. So putting it to work with an untenable or unusable user interface can really, really slow down the adoption rates. And that's why the UI UX development process is really, really, really important. We'd like to see things happen easily and quickly. And so putting some thought into it's really important.
All right, no, that totally makes sense. Right, so as the VP of Operations, I'm curious how you kind of got started down the UI UX path and, what made you take an interest in it personally?
That's a great question. And it's sort of a winding road a little bit. When I joined Indicio, I had the task of having to learn about all of this technology largely from scratch. And in talking to our leadership and talking to our technical team and having them explain all of this to me and how it worked and why it was important, I was coming at it from the point of view of a clueless end user and going, yeah, but how do I do this? How do I do this? Why do I want it? Why do I want to use it? How do I go about using it? And asking those questions of them really hammered home the importance to me of making something usable. And you can have all the technical explanations and diagrams you want, but until something's really intuitive and in the hands of people who know absolutely nothing about it, then it's not going to be very useful at all. So my interest was driven by my complete and utter ignorance of the technology I was needing to talk about. So and so I want to make that learning curve that was very, very steep for me, very, very shallow and easy for everybody else.
No, that's awesome. I think that is kind of the perfect person to have as your UI UX. It sounds like to me. So,
Well, that is our model citizen, is someone who knows absolutely nothing, and we want to make it easy for them.
awesome. How do you define success, quote unquote, right, for UI UX? What would you say is like the end goal or something you would be happy with?
So as I just said, the short learning curve, right? We want someone to be able to pick up this technology and use it really without having to put a lot of thought into it. And there's a certain part of the audience that's going to really key in on the value props, that we've identified technically, and all of the privacy controls and the data protection and data authenticity that we know are there. But that's probably a smaller part of the user base. So we want to use things like simple language, and combine those with the normal visual indications of a nice UI. Right. So when you pick up something to use, an electronic tool, an app or a website or something of that nature, there's some universal things that sort of make it easy to use and easy to look at. And some of those are subjective, right? I could like an app and think it's really, really gorgeous and elegant, and you could look at it and say, wow, that's really, really ugly. So there's some subjectivity to it. But under the surface, the experience of using it, if the workflow is simple, if the swipes and taps and the messaging is simple and intuitive, then that can overcome some of the subjectivity of the visual part of the UI, right? So the user experience, the workflow is really the most important part, and that's what we're after, is creating parts and pieces that go together seamlessly and make it easy for people to use.
All right, sounds good. So what are your current thoughts on Indicio's UI? Are you currently happy with it? Are there any goals you can kind of tell us about, and maybe the shorter long term? And are
Sure.
there any sources of inspiration that you're pulling from, to kind of make it more easy for everyone to operate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say I'm simultaneously happy with it and unhappy with it, in that we always have goals to achieve, and we always look at it and try to improve and try to make it better. We're never satisfied with what we have. Doesn't mean it's not good and not useful, and is not better than other things in the market that we compare ourselves to. So in that sense, I'm happy with it. On the other hand, we do have some goals, and the goals really are rooted in the things I've already said. Continually working towards paring things down, making them very simple and intuitive. And one of the ways we do that, talking about sources of inspiration, is we look at a lot of other things. We take time to look at websites, not just in our industry, but across the board. And we look at apps and user things that are in our hands every day and try to pull from there. Existing things that have become commonplace in our digital lives are our primary sources of inspiration. So think of the things you pick up and do every single day, not the one-off things, not the odd websites you go to or the apps you use once a year, but the things you use all day, every day. Those are the things we're really looking at and saying, what makes this useful? What makes it intuitive? And then let's find a way to take this brand new technology and put it in a context that's almost exactly like that, because familiarity helps people understand things, right? We all make great use of analogies in our lives where we talk about, this is just like that other thing that happened. And there's a transitive understanding between things if you can make them analogous. And that's really where we draw our inspiration, to say, how do we take something brand new and different and make it analogous to something people are really familiar with? And when we can do that, we'll be really successful. So in other words, we're doing a fair amount of borrowing, but in the best possible way.
I like that. Awesome. I appreciate the time today, Scott. It looks like that is the end of the hour for us. If you at home are interested in verifiable credential technology and would be interested in learning a bit more, please be sure to subscribe to the channel as we continue to bring you some more educational content. And if you have any specific questions or topics that you'd like for us to cover, please go ahead and leave a comment below, and we'll be sure to read and address them. Thanks again to you, Scott. If someone was interested in learning more about Indicio's approach to UI UX, is there anywhere you would suggest they would look?
Well, I'd look first in the App Store to our Holder Plus app that allows you to obtain and be issued credentials and then present them to verifiers. So that's a great place to start, and that's one of our rapidly evolving platforms that will have our most advanced UI and UX things in it as our updates come along. And to reach out to our sales team and talk about the other pieces of the ecosystem, right? So nothing exists in isolation. We're not just building a wallet or an issuer or a verifier. We have all of the pieces of the puzzle, and we have some sandbox tools that you can take advantage of through our sales team, and take a look at how we've engineered the user experience from end to end, from issuer to holder to verifier, and created the full ecosystem.